So, hello everyone. My name is Charmaine. I focus on helping people travel cheaper, longer, and happier on a budget. And then I also host IG Live to show how other people travel and stay on the road. So today I have Mar and Dan with me. They are my travel hacking experts in Canada. Um, So, I mean, it's great because like I know there's so much content out there, especially for Americans, but I feel like there's not a lot in Canada. So when I found you guys, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm really excited you're here. And did you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like you said, we are Marley and Daniel, or Mar and Dan, and we live in Saskatoon normally, but we're currently in the Philippines. We're in Cebu right now. And we love travel hacking, and we found the same thing. We found there was a lot of information for Americans, but not for Canadians, and so we've been on a hunt to find out everything we can that we can access as Canadians, and to try to like share that. Um, when we're at home in Saskatoon, I work as a substitute teacher, and Daniel works in landscaping. So that's just a little bit about us.
Amazing. So let's just talk a little bit about travel hacking. So what is travel hacking for people who are not really familiar with this concept?
Yeah, so like the really basics of it is just actually opening different credit cards to earn miles and points, and then using those credit card points in order to get free or discounted travel. And yeah, just really utilizing the different like transfer partners and things like that in order to get your travel that you want to do.
Yes, amazing. How many points have you guys gained in the last year?
I don't, we haven't done a count in a while, but like
I
when I last counted, what do you think?
I think it's probably 750,
Yeah, I think probably.
750,000. So
Wow, super impressive.
yeah,
That's
thank you.
amazing. And you did that in 1 year.
Yeah, we started travel hacking in January
Yeah.
of this year. So
Great. So how did you guys get started in travel hacking?
well, it all started from like years back for me. I was watching this. My favorite YouTuber is Karen Nate, and they're American, and so they go around the world and they travel. And then there was a few episodes where kind of like Nate shared of like how they actually like make it come true, and how like they had actually like collected like millions of points and had used that like throughout a year or two. And I'm just like, that's very interesting. Like, I want to do that one day. And then I kind of met Marley, and then we wanted to get married. And so I'm like, hey, like, this is a great opportunity to start like travel hacking because it's a big expense. And like, then there'll be like two of us. And so I'm like, I wonder like what this will look like. And so I basically, for a month, I just like researched about like credit cards, about credit scores, about like money, and just about like, okay, is this like legal or not, or like is this like a scam, or like what is this? And then like basically came to the conclusion of being like, okay, well, I think I just have to like get my first credit card, and then we'll try it out from there. And yeah, and here we are with like ten credit cards between the two of us now, and 750,000 points. So
Amazing. Yes, I try to open credit cards too, but I always struggle. It's like, okay, which one do I use? And then I split up all my points, and then it's always
yep.
a really confusing game for me.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the key strategies? Because I know you mentioned like opening cards, and I'm very familiar with the bonus points and getting that bonus when you start. But what else can people do to really get points really quickly?
Yeah. So I think like really one of our like kind of our key strategies, how we would break it down is like, I mean, a really important thing for us first is like we really believe in budgeting and like knowing your financial situation really well. Like if we didn't have a good budget and kind of have a good handle on our finances, we wouldn't be doing this,
Yeah.
because we're not here to advocate for like open up a bunch of credit cards and get a bunch of debt so that you can have points, right? Like that defeats the purpose. We're not looking to go into debt so we can travel for free, right? Like that's not free then. So knowing our budget, and then knowing if we have large purchases. So for us this year, like large purchases included like our wedding. And so we knew that was coming up. And so we really started hitting on like, okay, we know how much money we're going to spend. So let's take a look at what credit cards will get us a lot of points with sign-up bonuses. And then while we're doing those spends, like how can we maximize the kind of point that we're getting based on like, okay, this card actually offers like 3 times the points when you spend at a restaurant. And so actually when we booked like our reception for our wedding, that counted as a restaurant. So we got like a whole bunch of points for a sign-up bonus, but we also got 3 times those like thousands of dollars towards our traveling.
Yep.
And then I think using like different things like whether it's like the e-store on Aeroplan or connecting your card to things like Uber and Starbucks and like all these different apps, like we just connect our card to every single thing that we can. And if we want to buy something, we first check like, can we buy it through an e-store so that we get point multipliers? Like how can we multiply the points as best we can? And then also referring each other to credit cards, you get even more points doing that. Like the Marriott cards, for example, when we refer each other, we both get more points for signing up for the card. So we like to do that. And we tell our friends, like, you know, we'll refer you and then you go and refer like your spouse or your friend or whoever. So like we all just get more points in the process. So there's lots of ways that you can hit on those things to get the most points.
I like how you talk about the referral bonus, because I'm always like, when I see those bonuses, I'm like, ooh, I have to get on this. But I was like, who am I going to ask? Yeah. So like, I like how you just like, oh, like you refer each other, or maybe you just like tell your friends and then they refer you. So you kind of like go in that loop.
Yeah, exactly. If there's a way, even like, you know, if you have a friend that you're like, oh, I know that they would like to travel too, like, you know, even talk about that and be like, okay, I'm going to refer you, then you can refer me to the next one. Because it's kind of like a big chain. Like you can refer back and forth to multiple cards. It's not just like a one-to-one, if that makes sense. Like usually I could refer to like 3 different cards and he could refer me to 3 different cards. So it works nicely if you can kind of have a partner or like a little group that you do it with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how do you decide, like I know you say you have like about 10 cards among the 2 of you. So how do you decide which card to use when, and you know, like which card do you use for what?
Yeah, so that just comes with like a lot of planning and researching like each card and like the value. And so I have like a spreadsheet on Excel listing all the cards, and there's categories of like grocery, gas, like pharmacy, eating out, daily purchases, travel purchases, and it's kind of like, and then you have like each card will be highlighted in a different category of that card to use. And it just kind of comes down to then remembering and being like, okay, actually like the Cobalt card, I'll get like 5 times the points on eating out, and so I should remember to use that. But if I'm actually using a card for just like everyday purchases, I should use my Marriott Bonvoy card, because that one just gives you 2 points per dollar no matter what. And so it's like you just kind of like learn that like, oh, actually these ones, like you just get so much more value when you use them in these certain categories.
And I will say, like, a lot of our conversation, like, you know, I'll like send a text, hey, I'm gonna buy this thing, which card should I use, right? Like it's like a normal part of our life that we'll be like, so which card?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Marriott card. Okay, great. We need to use Marriott card or whatever, right? So like, it's part of our like conversation in our life too, quite often.
Yeah, I feel like you have to remember like which has the best benefits, and I guess also when you use the startup bonus, you have to kind of focus on that.
For sure. I know there's people too who will actually put like a little piece of tape on their credit card, and they'll say like, you know, like 5 times on food or whatever, so that you can like pull them out and be like, oh yeah, okay, it's that one, right? If you have a hard time remembering.
Yeah, and I also like I've heard like people just kind of like focus on one card and then they go on to the next card after.
Oh yeah, exactly. And like our 5 cards, like we didn't get those all in like one day. It kind of like we like kind of like thought out about like, okay, like it goes back to like budgeting and being like, well, actually how much do I spend in a month? And actually that will then determine how kind of like many cards I get, and being like, well, actually if I only spend $1,000 in a month, then maybe only 1 card is good. And so I'll like try and maximize that 1 card until like, let's say you have to like spend $500 for 6 months to get like 30,000 points. Then it's kind of like, well, I'll sign up for that 1 card for 6 months, and after the 6 months, I'll like look for something else, and then like kind of keep doing the same thing.
Right. So you focus on the sign up bonus per card and then move on to the next card.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's kind of like different. So like when we think about cards, there's kind of like three different. There's like you have to know your goals of like what.
Oops. I think I lost them for a second. I think you guys are frozen. Can you guys still hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, I think you guys were frozen for a second.
Okay, I can redo that. So yeah, that kind of comes down to like, well, what's our goal? Do we want to focus on hotels, on flights, or kind of like on
Flexible points.
On flexible points? Yeah, and so that's kind of like an important thing to kind of like for what our goals would be, and then from there we then determine like, okay, these are like the cards we get for that.
Amazing. Yeah. So thinking ahead of time, like, do you want to, is your goal like for flights or is it go for hotels and whatnot?
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And then another question that I always get confused or think about is like, how much cards is enough? Like you have 10 cards already. Should you be getting more? Or, do you start canceling cards? Like, what do people usually do for something like this?
Yeah. So I think like, obviously, okay, so if you think about, first it's like we have basically like 5 cards each, right? So, it's 10 cards between the two of us, but we don't have 10 cards each right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's lots of options. Like, I think there's probably like 3 main options when it comes to like, what do we do when we've hit the year mark? Because we don't want to cancel the card before the year mark, like the annual kind of, like when you would hit the annual fee, because that will hurt our credit score more than if we leave it for the year. So we're comfortable leaving it for the year. We know we're going to leave it for a year. And once we leave it for a year or have it for a year, we look at, okay, does this card offer us enough value that we want to keep the card and pay the fee? Because some of them, like the Cobalt card or even our Marriott cards, like we're going to keep them. Our Marriott card, we get a free night every year worth 35,000 points. Like that's worth it to us. We like traveling enough. We're going to keep it. So we're not really worried about those. We have 3 Marriott cards between the two of us. So we're not worried about those ones. Some of them, though, they're kind of only good for their sign-up bonus. So we would look at, can that like, whether it's American Express or the bank, would they potentially give us a retention offer? So we're going to reach out and say, hey, do you have a retention offer for us? We're thinking about canceling the card, kind of ask what they could offer. And some of them will offer something good enough that we'd say, okay, great, we're going to keep it again for a year. And some of them will just say, you know what, we don't want it anymore. We're actually just going to cancel. It's not worth it to keep it. And so our credit score might take a little dip from that. But because we've tracked our credit scores and we know them, we know that we have strong enough that they're going to come back up. So we're not worried. But we wouldn't want to like get 5 cards in a month and then cancel them all within 6. Like that would be a bad idea. So I think even like for some of those questions, we actually, like in our 25-page guide, which is free on our, like we have a link for it in our bio, we cover all that stuff to go, like, how do I know if I'm going to like mess up my credit score? How many credit cards can I get? What am I supposed to do after a year? Because those are really good questions to have. Like we want to do it wisely and with like strategy, so we're not just like messing around with all of our finances.
Yeah, and I think one other thing to do would be actually to downgrade a card. And that's like one of the most important things to think about. And like a lot of people don't really know that actually when you like, let's say you get a TD card and you get TD first class travel, you can actually call the bank and be like, hey, could I just like, I can't pay the annual fee anymore. Can I just downgrade it? And actually, once you downgrade it, you just leave it open, and like that'll actually like increase your credit score and won't hurt it. And it's kind of like our last resort is to like cancel. Like of course, like if you can't do anything, you have to cancel it. But it's kind of like as much as we can, we want to try and keep the card with 0 annual fee and for as long as possible.
Yeah,
I think downgrading is a really good option because credit card fees do really get expensive, and I know some of them are like the Amex Cobalt. I think it's like $250 if I'm correct. Or
that one's 12. It's 12. And that one's a monthly thing, and so that one's it's like good in that way because you can kind of like have it for a few months and try it out. And if you don't want it, then you just have paid for like 3 months, and so I think it's $12.99 a month. So.
Got it. Yeah. So like it adds up quite a bit. So it is really great to downgrade, I think. And I've also read some forums that sometimes people say that if you downgrade and there's a special offer, sometimes you can upgrade again. Do you know anything about those? If those points usually you can get it again?
I'm not like it depends on what the bank is. Like
Yeah.
some banks will kind of like allow that more, but recently I've been seeing, especially from TD, it being like, well, if you've already had this card before, like this offer doesn't apply to you. And so you'll just kind of like have to like read a lot of the fine print and just being like, okay, well, does this still apply for me? You can even call up and be like, hey, I'm thinking of getting this. I was just wondering about like, do I still get the sign up bonus because I already had it before, or like, what's like the deal here? And so like, yeah, you can always like call up and ask and just see.
Awesome. So the other question I want to ask is, what are your favorite cards? What is in your favorite cards that you're using to accumulate points right now? Oops, I think you guys are frozen again.
Categories.
Hello?
Everyday spending, we definitely love the Cobalt card. It comes with such flexible points with the American Express membership reward points, and it's what is it, 5 times?
Yeah, it gives the highest point per dollar like in any of the Canadian credit cards, and that's why it's so good. And you actually can't get that offer on the American side, so that's like a big advantage we have from them.
Yeah, and then go ahead.
Sorry, I think you cut off a little bit. So I got the Cobalt, so it's 5 times for restaurants, I think it was?
Yep.
And groceries.
Yeah, restaurants and groceries.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so for like everyday spending, like if you don't have a large purchase that's coming up, we would just use our Cobalt card. Like we use it like every month, just all the time. We're getting points on that card just from our everyday spending. But then if for sign up bonuses, as far as like hotels and flights, we love the Aeroplan co-branded cards. We've used TD mostly. That's who we bank with, so that's what we've used. And so we've gotten, when the TD Aeroplan cards have like an elevated offer, we've gotten those ones, and they've gotten us super far. Like that's how we got to Asia, was on basically just our TD, and then American Express Aeroplan cards as well. And then for hotels, we love the American Express Marriott cards. We love that there's a business card and a personal card, and you can like refer to each other. You can just like kind of like stack the points on top of each other if that's something that you want to do. And those Marriott points can go really far in certain places, or they can go for luxury. If you want to live it up in luxury for like a week, great. But like we're stretching those points super far, not in luxury. Yeah. So we go for more like, we want to go far and go like economy and like, you know, kind of lower tier hotels, and we're good with that because we want to do more. But if you want to go luxury and go big, you can totally do that. Yeah. And then Daniel's favorite card for like just actually being international is
the Scotiabank Passport Infinite, I think. No, Passport. Just a Scotiabank Passport.
I think it's a Scotiabank Passport.
I think the Infinite is the one up, but it's just like it gives you, it's zero foreign or zero. It doesn't charge you no foreign transactions.
No foreign transactions.
And you get 6 lounge passes with it too, and it's only like $150, which like in compared with the other ones that give you lounge passes, it's actually like a pretty good value. And so that's like a really good one. Like once you start traveling and you're like using your credit card a lot, like internationally, like the fees add up, and like that's like a really good way to like save money on that.
Yeah, and I like how you talk about the lounge passes, because lounge passes are really expensive, and a lot of the cards that include it are very expensive too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I think like if you want a limited lounge passes, like the American Express Platinum is now $700 a year, and it's kind of like, that's like crazy. Like we don't have that one, and it's just, we want to get there one day, but we'll see.
Yeah, so I think even like I would mention too that like we've done a lot, like we've done all of our travel hacking with the like highest fee we've ever paid is $150, right? Like we're not even dabbling in the cards that are like $250, $700. Like we haven't even done that because that's just not really like the place that we're in as far as our budget goes. So we've done all of our travel hacking on like credit cards that are under $150, and so we like, it's very possible to do that. You don't have to like get an American Express Platinum card or something in order to get points and go on a trip.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because I look at card fees too, and I'm like, I do not want to spend over $150 because it does get expensive if you get more than one.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I want to ask, so I think you mentioned the American Express Marriott. I think you mentioned you have a personal and a business card. And can you talk a little bit about how people can get a business card? Because I know that sometimes it has a lot of perks.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about
Sure.
it?
Yeah, so actually, if you have any side hustle, that's like considered a business.
Mm.
And so basically selling off of Facebook Marketplace, like selling a few woodworking things, like if you've knitted and then I've sold that, like that's basically considered a business. And so we both have business cards, and we just put our names. So mine is just like Daniel Fast, and then just how it'll ask you like how much income you made in the year, and I just put like I don't know like $500 on Facebook Marketplace. And American Express is actually a brand that's like very easy to get into, and that's why we maybe like recommend it a lot because like the TD ones and the Scotiabank ones, like you need to have an annual income. Like there's a cap to that, and then you have to make $60,000 personal income in a year, and kind of like a lot of people don't really reach that, and so American Express is like a good alternative to like still get the same value, but like not really get denied credit cards. And so the business side of that too means that like if you get a business credit card with American Express, it's also like a bit easier than getting them with the other banks. And actually, they do give you a lot of business cards do give you a higher sign up bonus, and that's why we get them. Um, when it comes to kind of like value wise for like other things, like I find that it's like the personal ones and the business ones are like pretty much the same.
For the Marriott
For
one,
the Marriott ones, yeah.
I think though the Marriott business has a better multiplier for food or something.
That's true, yeah. It's like the business ones will have like better multipliers, and so instead of having like 2 times the points for food, it'll have 3 times. And so like you can like totally take advantage of that.
So do they actually check like if you're like the business cards do they check like how you're making business, or you could just write like, oh, I made $500 off selling Facebook, and that's okay?
Yeah, I think like you're not actually like required to have like a registered business or like a business license for American Express at least. And so as far as we're concerned, it's been fine. We've never had any issue. And like I've done some research on it too, and it seems like it's not really like you don't have to prove anything to them for that. It's okay to have like I think like they kind of see it as a small business category rather than like, you're not some big corporation that's getting a credit card.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I have read a lot of articles and they're talking about like these business cards, and I'm always like wondering like, how do I qualify for that? Or do you need a registered business, for example? But it doesn't seem like the case.
Yeah, and that's where I think like the distinction would be between like say like TD or BMO or something, where I think you actually do need some of that information in order to get a business card with them, but you don't need that for American Express.
Yeah.
Nice. For your TD, I know there's 2. There's the first class and the Aeroplan. Do you have a preference or either of one of the 2?
Well, it just depends what you want it for. I think maybe like the first class travel, it's like less. Well, they're basically like the same. They're actually both the same value. We just find more value in Aeroplan just because the points per dollar you get when you're actually booking something, it like fluctuates higher, and you can actually get like a really much more efficient use of your points in that. But the TD first class is like those points basically travel in, like they convert into Expedia points, and so that's just like very convenient to have just in case like there's no hotels around, and you're like, well, what are we gonna do tonight? And like, okay, well, I guess let's just like book something on Expedia quickly, or like even when you're planning a trip, it's just nice to kind of have that flexibility where you can use it for hotels and stays, or you could also use it for flights. And like that's the good thing about it. It might not be the most efficient use of your points, but it's like if free travel is free travel, and so that's what it comes to at the end of the day, right? It's kind of like, well, if I'm getting this thing for free, like that's like the best case scenario. So
yeah, because go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say we've used both, right? Like we've used both, and we have like on this trip that we're on, like we're using both, and it's nice to have access to both kinds of points.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. Like, because once you have an Aeroplan card, then you can't get more. You can't, like, there's no point of getting a second branded Aeroplan card. So I was like, oh, then maybe you could get the first class and then you could use that for those travel points instead.
Yeah, actually though, like I have 2 Aeroplan cards, and Marley has.
I have 2 as well.
Yeah, she has 2 as well, because you can like stack the sign up bonuses on top of each other, and I think like that is like that is kind of like how we've accumulated points so quickly, because we're kind of like, okay, well, in this season, what's really important and what's really expensive is flights, and so we like really want to hone in on the flights, and so we kind of like like the first card I got was like an Aeroplan card, and then I like finished that, and I'm like, okay, great, like this is like very valuable, like I'll get another one and then I'll stack on top, and so like we basically got like 70,000 points from like the 2 cards that like I had right away, and like that's really good. So like you can stack on top of each other, but it's like, but then it does still like limit you to like what you can use it for. And so yeah, it is like nice to have like a bunch of different options, like what you said.
I actually didn't know that you could have 2 Aeroplan cards. Which 2 Aeroplan cards are you using?
So it would be like, we both have a TD Aeroplan and an American Express Aeroplan for each of us. But like we could get, like there's also like a CIBC
one.
Aeroplan, like you could get that too if you wanted. Like, we haven't run into any issues with having like multiple Aeroplan sign-up bonuses at all.
Interesting. So you can put more than one account, like you can connect it to more than one. You can use 2 cards to connect to the same Aeroplan account.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And actually, the good thing about Aeroplan is they have it's like different than all the other programs, because they have like family mode, and so actually she has her own account and I have my own account, and they don't want, like, if the card's in my name, they don't want me using her account, and the same vice versa. But actually, we're able to like pool all our points in a family account, and so we're able to then like use her points and use my points, and then like go and use that for travel, and that's like a big advantage of like Aeroplan and doing that. And so like that's why it's kind of like it's okay for you to have like more than one card connected to one account, because they both kind of go in separately, as long as you're not like all putting them on one person and they're actually not in that same person's name. That's what like they're not so happy about.
But then you could put two cards onto one Aeroplan card, like you said. Like you could have the American Express and the TD per person.
Yeah, we've both done that.
Yeah, you can put it onto one account. Yeah.
Okay, that I didn't know. I actually thought that was not allowed. I thought you can only put one credit card on one account for Aeroplan.
No, we haven't had any issues with that.
Yeah, and like when they ask you if you're getting a card, they'll actually ask you if you do have an Aeroplan account already, or if you don't. And if you do, then you basically just put your number in, and then it'll like transfer right on over to your account.
Okay, good to know. So I think I need another Aeroplan card then.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Because obviously my one, I have the TD Aeroplan too, and I am not earning very quickly right now. So I would love another one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I know AE also has a really good Aeroplan card. It's one of the most recommended, I feel, and it has a good sign-up bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so nice. And like Aeroplan cards just give you like so much. Well, if you're flying Air Canada a lot, it gives you like so much more flexibility, and even just like baggage, and then like all the other perks that it has. So yeah, would recommend.
Yeah, I think the Aeroplan gives you up to 8 people free baggage if they're traveling with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the only thing I always find is that then I'm always stuck with Air Canada. Do you also have that issue?
I think like we don't really find that, especially because they have lots of partner airlines, right? So even when you go onto Aeroplan and you want to book, like we're flying with Turkish Airlines, we flew with Air Canada on our way to Korea, and then we flew with Asiana from Korea to the Philippines. And then we're flying with Turkish Airlines later. But then, like, for part of our trip, too, we also, like, we've paid with cash for flights that we felt like were a really good deal. So, like, we're actually flying home from Paris with WestJet because it was such a good price. And so we paid with cash for that. So we don't feel like we're trapped with Air Canada. I mean, you're kind of, like, your points they're always going to slot you into something, right? Like there's no point that's just like universal point, right? So you got to pick something, and Aeroplan is definitely the best point for Canadians. So we're okay to work with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point as well, is trying to figure out like what is a good value. Like, is it better to use points or is it better to use cash if you're using a different airline?
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess you also get points for that on your credit card, so you're not losing out in a way. You're
That's
using
right.
your points another way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think when you use Aeroplan points, you don't get that extra. You don't accumulate points for using points, from what I understand.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah. So then like if you use a different airline, for example, or you're paying it in cash, then you're earning those points.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like that's how maybe like if people haven't like gotten their travel credit cards yet or like accumulated points and they're traveling right now or in the near future, like they can use that trip to gain points for like their next trip, right? And then that next trip could be free. And so it's like a good, you can like really, if you think about it, you can like really try and leapfrog your like points over to like the next one and like all those small things.
Yeah. Right. And then I guess the other thing is, how do you decide on how you use your points? Because I know there are lots of little hacks for that too. I know sometimes I've read on Aeroplan you can do a stopover for 5,000 Aeroplan points, I think. And there's other little hacks like that. Do you have any advice on any little hacks to take advantage of your hard-earned points?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like usage for points, like it always brings me back to like the fundamentals of like, okay, well, actually, what am I using my points for? And like, am I using it again to like travel for hotels? Do I want flexible? And then from basically there, I kind of like plan my trip better. And then also knowing how like flexible that goal is. And actually, the most efficient points usually are like with the most flexible timeline. And so if like I want to go to like Hawaii on December 26th, well, that's probably like going to be like the most expensive time to go, and I'll just have to like earn my points and like use it at that time. And like that's great because that's my goal. But like if maybe I'm like, okay, well, I want to go to maybe Hawaii sometime, and I can look up when like the cheapest time, maybe the cheapest time is actually after Christmas. And so I like leave January 9th and I'm actually able to pay for my flight there and back, or like pay for my flight there and like I still have points left over. And so I think like a goal is like really important. And then I think the second one is kind of like looking also for options and kind of scouring the internet. And like we've spent many hours doing this.
We do a lot of that.
Of like actually looking at Aeroplan, looking at Avios, looking at Avion, looking at membership reward points, looking at WestJet, and just checking all the different reward points and being like, okay, actually, what's the best way to like get to this place I want to go, or like what's the cheapest way I want to like travel, and then like from there basically being like, okay, well actually I need to accumulate those points, and how can I get those points is by getting like the American Express membership reward card if I want to like get like KLM points to like fly to Europe, because that's like one of the cheapest ways to fly to Europe. And so it's like, and so you can like really get like good usage from like knowing what you want to use your points for. And then like exactly what you said is like, well, like different programs have different like benefits, just like the Aeroplan. If you add a stopover, like actually what we did with Korea, we had like we wanted to fly right to Manila, and then we added a stopover in Korea for an extra 5,000 points. And it still cost us only like 47,000 points.
Yeah, somehow actually, like, I don't have a clue how this works, but actually when we looked up our flights from Saskatoon just straight to Manila, it was going to be like 60,000 points each. And somehow when we searched it with a stopover, it was like 48. So it was like, it actually saved us points. Like, I don't really think it should have, but like it did.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know what went on there, but it was like cheaper for us to actually have a stopover and then fly to Manila. And so we're like, so should we do it? Yeah. You know, like I think we should do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of just like things like that where it's kind of like, well, that was from like our research and just kind of like trying all the options and trying like even the different places to stop over in Japan maybe, or maybe like Thailand, or maybe Vietnam, and like actually we found like we're like Korea. Oh, actually that's like the cheapest place, and like we haven't been there, and like hey, why don't we go there? And it's kind of being like flexible too in that, right? And so I'd say like that's another thing just to think about when like we're using points and being like, okay, actually like how set am I on this goal? Like can I be more flexible? And then even like from that, like we can use our points for like so much more than just travel, and we can actually use them also to just like sometimes cancel our credit cards off and like buy stuff on like a store, or like there's things that like aren't travel related that like they probably like actually they're like not the best way to use their points. And so I feel like a lot of times people are like hooked and being like, well, actually I could buy like a vacuum for 80,000 points, but actually you could like go basically around the world for that much money, and so or for that much points. And so just yeah, knowing like, okay, is this actually a great point percent ratio. And actually on our guide we talk about that. There's actually a calculation you do where it's actually you can find how many cents per point you're gaining out of your travel that you've booked, and like anything above 2 is basically really good, 2 cents per point.
Got
And so yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about that, you can like check our guide and we explain it a bit more in depth, and there's like a whole equation that I actually forget now, so
Yeah, amazing. And I've read those equations too. Like it's so important to see if you're getting good value
yeah.
for your points.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with what you're saying, like it was cheaper at the stopover is probably because of the flight. Like Saskatoon flying to Korea is maybe this setup point, and then Korea flying to Philippines, so then it becomes a little bit lower because of the two separate flights points. Right?
Yeah, something about like even the dynamic pricing, right? Of like how far the distance is and stuff. Like just, and I'm like, I guess when I'm saying like I don't know exactly, it's like I just don't have all of that down as far as there is ways to like really nail down. If I fly this far, it'll cost me this much, and then I can do this far. And even for people who are trying to figure those things out, I would say like sign up for newsletters. Like we get the Daily Drop newsletter every day. It's American based, but we learn so much from those things where some of it we go, yeah, it doesn't apply, and then we're like, oh, that's a gem, right? Like that will help us. Oh, and we even go, oh, we should have done that for our trip, right? Like we still are like learning so many things that we're like, man, if we would have known that before we booked these tickets, we could have been doing this, this, and this. And it's like, so just like keep signing up for like newsletters, follow people on Instagram. We follow like mostly American based stuff because that's most of what's out there.
Yeah.
Prince of Travel, like just like follow all of it and like just take in as much as you can, but also just like start going for it. Like I said, we have just started going for it, and then later we're like, oh, we could have been doing this, but that's okay because next time we can try that, right? And so we're just learning as we go, and then trying to help other people learn as they go too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the advice is that it's never too late to start, right?
Yeah,
the sooner
exactly.
you start. Yeah, like even like now I'm like, ooh, now I learned these tricks. Now I gotta use them like next year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and we're all just like constantly learning, and like it's kind of like like the best way to learn is to try, and it's kind of like, well, we've had things we've booked that were probably more failures and not like the most efficient parts of our trips or our points, but it's kind of like, but then we like know for next time, and even like still we got it for free, and so again like, does anybody really like not really? It's like still a good way because you just took the first step out there and like just did it.
Yeah, and I think for us too, it's all part of like the adventure, right? It's just like learning and being like, okay, well, this hotel is really far away, so maybe next time we don't like, do that again. But it's like, hey, that's just part of the fun, and we just get to like see a new part of the world and experience it, and I think like that's great.
Awesome. Yeah, super valuable advices. So before we conclude, I just want to ask, what advice would you give to somebody who's just in the beginning stages of travel hacking?
I think advice would be like what we've been talking about, is just take the first step, like sign up for your first card, like, or maybe even just like sign up for your first card, like budget and see what you want to use your points for, and just like try it out and see, just see like where those points can be used for, and like just maybe do a bit like of research and like yeah, using like the different resources of like, well, maybe like if you're Canadian, like our Instagram page, or like even like Prince of Travel, or even like some American pages too, just kind of even like, okay, like understanding like, oh, this is like what like travel hacking is as a full, and like I think like I can take that on. It's like, and it's only like one step out, and I feel like once you take that first step out of getting your first credit card, you're kind of like already hooked and you're already there, and it's kind of like that first time you get on the flight for free, I'm like, that's when you know, like, okay, like I never want to like stop doing this. I want to like find out everything I can and try and make this like more efficient. And so that's probably my advice.
Yeah, and I think maybe the two things I would say is like, like do what like works for you. Like don't like compare to like maybe what you see everyone else doing, because you might not have the same goal as what they're doing, right? Like sometimes we're like using our points for like, wow, some like great hotel in Dubai, and sometimes we're using our points to like have a nice stay away in like Edmonton, which is not that glamorous, but it's like what we needed at the time and it was fun, right? And so both of those things were like, they're both valuable, and so it's okay to like do what works for you, because not everyone has the ability to like go on a big trip where they go internationally, but you can use points at home too. And I would also say, don't be afraid of an annual fee. Like I totally understand if you don't want to pay $700, but like paying like $100 or $150, if you get that sign-up bonus and you use the perks of the card, like it will pay for itself. So like we have some people that are just so afraid of those annual fees, and we're like, it's gonna pay for itself.
Yeah, it will.
Try like one and you'll see.
Yeah.
I think it's trying to know ahead of time what that card can give you. So like, I know you talk about the Marriott, and I have the Marriott as well. And I love how that I just feel like every single year I'm going to get that one night. So I know that even if I don't spend anything, that it's going to at least cover my fee. And that gives me a sense of security.
Yeah, exactly. Like you feel like you're getting something. Like they're really they are gifting you something for having that card. And so it feels worth it.
Yeah. And it's like that, and especially that Marriott one, it's like totally worth. Like you can get a $250 like room for 120 or 150, whatever card you got, like for that price. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's like already worth it every year. And so like, why not keep using it or like keep it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So trying to figure out like what benefits you get, and is that benefit worth it to you? So I think that card is a perfect example.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, chatting and all your advice. It was super helpful. And I mean, everyone is gonna read the 25-page guide. I know that I need to go through it again. But super great advice. So thank you so much for chatting.